before he ruled the largest empire in history. Genghis Khan was a starving, abandoned boy. To understand Genghis Khan, you first have to understand the world that made him. The Mongolian steppe is one of the most extreme environments on Earth. A vast open landscape stretching thousands of miles in every direction, beautiful in the way that dangerous things often are. In summer, the grasslands roll endlessly under an enormous sky. In winter, temperatures plunge so far below freezing that livestock die standing up, and a man caught unprepared in the open won't last the night. There were no cities here, no stone walls, no markets or libraries or centers of learning. Life on the steppe was built around movement, following the grass, following the herds, surviving the seasons. The people who lived here were among the toughest on Earth. They learned to ride before they could properly walk. Children grew up in the saddle, trained with bows from a young age, conditioned by the land itself into something lean and hard, and perpetually ready. But toughness alone didn't guarantee survival, because the steppe wasn't just a harsh landscape, it was a political battleground. Dozens of tribes competed for the same grazing lands, the same water sources, the same fragile margin between survival and starvation. Raids were common, alliances shifted constantly. A tribe that was powerful one generation could be scattered and broken the next. Trust was a luxury few could afford, and loyalty, real loyalty, was the most valuable currency in the world. This was the world Temüjin was born into. Around 1162, in a small camp near the Onon River, in what is now northeastern Mongolia, he came into a world that was already trying to kill him. His father, Yesugei, was a chief of the Borjigin clan, not the most powerful leader on the steppe, but a man of genuine standing, respected, feared by some, the kind of man whose presence held things together. When Temüjin was born, Yesugei had just returned from a raid on a rival tribe, the Tatars. In keeping with Mongol custom, he named his newborn son after a captured Tatar chief, Temüjin, a name that meant something like of iron, forged from metal. He couldn't have known how fitting it would prove to be. When Temüjin was 9 years old, Yesugei rode out to arrange a marriage for him to a neighboring tribe, to negotiate an alliance through family. On his way home, he stopped to eat and drink with a group of Tatar men. Whether they recognized him or whether it was deliberate from the start is unclear. What is clear is that he was poisoned. He made it home, but never recovered. Within days, Yesugei was dead, and the ground beneath Temüjin's family's feet had just disappeared. What happened next was a brutal lesson in how the steppe worked. The clan that Yesugei had led, the people who had eaten his food, ridden under his banner, benefited from his protection, looked at his widow and children, and made a calculation. A woman and her young children were mouths to feed, liabilities. In a world where survival was already precarious, carrying the weak was a choice, and they chose not to make it. They left. They packed up their camp, took their herds and rode away, leaving Hoelun, Temüjin's mother, alone with her children on the open steppe as winter approached. No food stored, no animals left to speak of, no clan, no protection, no future. There is an image preserved in the secret history of the Mongols, the oldest surviving Mongolian literary work which recorded Temüjin's life, of Hoelun running after the departing clan, waving a banner, screaming for them to come back. They didn't. What followed were years that would have ended most people. Hoelun was resourceful, fierce, and utterly unwilling to let her children die. She dug wild onions and garlic from the riverbanks. She gathered berries and roots. She taught her children to fish with hooks fashioned from bone and to hunt small animals, marmots, field mice, whatever the steppe offered. Temüjin and his brothers scavenged alongside her, learning the skills of survival that wealthier children were taught for sport. There were days with almost nothing to eat, nights when the cold came in hard, and the family huddled together for warmth in a tent that offered barely enough shelter. Moments, surely, when it must have seemed impossible that any of them would make it. But they did. And in Temüjin, those years deposited something that suffering often does in people built to endure it, a profound, unshakable understanding of what it felt like to be powerless. He never forgot it. But survival isn't always clean. And Temüjin's story has edges that are difficult to look at directly. There is a moment recorded in the secret history, a moment that tells you everything about who this boy was becoming, and the world that was shaping him. The dispute broke out between Temüjin and his half-brother Bekta. On the surface, it was about food, a bird Temüjin had caught that Bekta took. A fish. Small things that weren't small at all when your family was starving. But underneath it was something larger, a question of authority, of who would lead this fractured little family, of who would decide who ate and who went hungry. Temüjin, still a teenager, took his brother Kasar, and they hunted Bekta down. They killed him. It's a deeply uncomfortable moment in the story of a man who would go on to be celebrated as a great leader. There's no softening it, but it speaks to something important. The steppe did not produce gentle men. It produced men who made hard choices and lived with them. Temüjin had decided in the most irreversible way possible that he would not be dominated, not by circumstance, not by anyone. Every hardship shaped him. Every loss taught him something that no teacher could have offered in a classroom. He learned what abandonment felt like, and so he understood, at a bone-deep level, what loyalty was truly worth. He learned what hunger felt like, and so he never took resources or security for granted. He learned what it meant to be powerless, and so when power became available to him, he pursued it with a focus that bordered on the obsessive. His environment had tried to kill him. His own clan had tried to discard him. The world had offered him nothing but cold and hunger and grief. And somewhere in those years of survival, Temüjin made a decision, wordless, probably, more feeling than thought, that he would never be at the mercy of the world again. The boy wandering the Mongolian steppe with nothing to his name was beginning to become something the world had never seen. But how does an abandoned outcast with no clan, no wealth, and no standing begin to build something in a world that had already written him off? In Part 2, Temüjin finds his first allies, his greatest love, and the rival who would push him to the edge of everything.